All right, guys. Good morning. Good morning. I hope you guys are doing good today. It is Monday. We got a lot of news to talk about. NASDAQ, S&P, Dow. All right, guys. Whoa. That was loud. Yeah, so a lot of news happening. Let me turn the volume for myself down a little bit. But the big news over the weekend, there's two big stories that are moving markets today ahead of the FOMC meeting on Wednesday. First thing is a U.S.-EU trade deal. So a framework agreement between the United States and the European Union. It sets a 15% baseline import tariff on most European goods, half of what had been threatened. Brings a lot of clarity, gives a lot of optimism. There will be 0-for-0 tariffs on sectors like aerospace, pharmaceuticals, while tariffs on steel and aluminum remain at 50% to later transition to a quota system. That is the big news moving markets this morning. That is what's driving markets up. The EU also pledged to invest about $600 billion in the U.S. while committing to purchase $750 billion in U.S. energy imports, primarily LNG and critical raw materials. S&P, NASDAQ, all up some this morning, suggesting a positive open. The NASDAQ sitting at 23,005. Stocks of natural gas producers leaped 7 to 9% after this European Union agreement, where they agreed to purchase $250 billion per year in U.S. LNG as part of the new trade pact. A lot of energy stocks are up because of this morning. Can y'all hear the music at all? Let me know if you can hear the music. Yeah, let me know if you can hear the music. No, not really. Okay. Oh, I think I know why. Hold on 1 second. Okay, let me know if you can hear it now. You should be able to hear it now. Let me know if that's good. Okay. Yeah, the other big news this morning, outside of the European Union trade deal announcement, was that Tesla announced a $16.5 billion chip deal with Samsung, supports its next generation AI chip agenda. Yeah, that's the big deal that's moving Tesla. If you take a look at Tesla this morning, it's up to 320s. Now, remember, it kind of negatively reacted to earnings. Had a good day on Friday, and now it's up a little bit on this chip deal announcement. Yeah, they're finalizing a $16.5 billion chip deal with Samsung. It's valued at $16.5 billion over 8+ years. It spans through 2033, and they're going to source custom AI chips called A16 from Samsung, produced at its newly built Taylor, Texas foundry. Elon confirmed on social media that Tesla will be involved in maximizing production efficiency and that he plans to personally oversee progress. He also emphasized that the $16.5 billion figure is just a baseline. Output may ultimately go past that or exceed that. Samsung shares are up 6.8% in CL trading following the news. Tesla rose about almost 2%. For Samsung, it's seen as a critical win, which has been trailing behind TSMC with only 8% global market share. For Tesla, it secures a dedicated supply of Tesla chips. Ultimately, it's pretty good for both companies, but yeah. Better for Samsung. Now, remember, this week we have a whole bunch of stuff going on. I mean, today's a little bit slower. Just because we don't really have much Yeah, we don't really have much going on today specifically. It's mostly the rest of this week. So if you look at like economic reports, today's boring. Tomorrow we got JOLTS job report, we got CB consumer confidence, we got the Case-Shiller house price index. Wednesday's incredibly busy. We have non-farm employment data, not payrolls, but it's the prelim payroll data that comes out 2 days before payrolls, the actual payroll labor report. But at 8:15 we got non-farm employment change data on Wednesday. 8:30 we have GDP for quarter 2 2025. We have pending home sales at 10, and then at 2 o'clock we have the FOMC decision. 2:30 we have the press conference for it. Thursday we have jobless claims, PCE inflation, Chicago PMI data. Friday we have non-farm payrolls, unemployment, ISM manufacturing, Michigan consumer sentiment, and more. And this doesn't even include the big earnings that we have this week. So we do have a lot of stock earnings coming out this week. Specifically, we have nothing really today. No companies that you would probably know about. Tilray cannabis stock 405 today. It's been running a little bit recently. Tomorrow morning we have SoFi, PayPal, Boeing, Spotify, UPS, Merck, Procter & Gamble, Royal Caribbean, United Health, and more. So tomorrow we have a lot of stuff in the morning. Tomorrow evening we got Visa, Mara, Starbucks, Cheesecake Factory, Caesars. Most of the big ones start Wednesday though. Wednesday we have Meta, Microsoft, Robinhood, Carvana, Applied Digital, QCOM, ARM, Ford, MGM, eBay, more. Thursday evening we have Apple, Amazon, MicroStrategy, Coinbase, Reddit, and more. So a lot of stuff going on. Yeah. Nice gap for a lot of stuff overnight. All right, let's do a poll here. I don't think I've done a poll yet. So are you bullish or bearish on FOMC week? You can vote on that poll. Bitcoin at 119.60s, but it's up a little bit. Microsoft is... Microsoft's kind of flat right now. Apple's green. Nvidia is also green. Yeah, you can see the previous closing price is at about 173.50 for Nvidia. It's at 174.60s. So Nvidia green, Apple green. Intel's still down pretty big, but I think it's slightly green today. I'm just calling it FOMC week because we got a whole bunch of stuff going on. 61 say bullish, 39% say bearish. So much stuff going on. Yeah, another big news story that happened is that the U.S. and China agreed to extend the tariff pause by another 90 days. Another 90 days. Which is also big news, of course. And again, this week we got the FOMC meeting. Rate decisions are both expected to pause for both the FOMC and the Bank of Japan. The Fed's meeting kicks off Wednesday. This is where AI gets it wrong sometimes. Like, I use AI to give me like a rundown. And this is what AI says. It says, quote, this week features crucial events from the Fed and the Bank of Japan policy meeting. Rate decisions are expected to hold, but market commentary will be scrutinized. The Fed's meeting kicks off Tuesday. I guess they're not wrong because the FOMC meeting is a 2-day thing, right? The final day is the FOMC decision and the press conference that accompanies it. But so I guess they're not necessarily wrong. It does kick off Tuesday, but the big one that you guys know about is Wednesday. So I guess just to backpedal a little bit, I guess they're not necessarily wrong. Some stocks that are up this morning: aerospace and defense, Lockheed Martin, RTX, Boeing are up after the European Union's military equipment purchasing pledge. Boeing also weathered labor strike news. Nike shares are up 3.5%. Maybe a little bit more than that, honestly. Yeah, Nike shares are up. Looks like they're up over 4% to me right now. Maybe not. More closer to 3%. Again, Nike had an upgrade from JP Morgan projecting strong earnings through 2030. We got Waste Management earnings, Nucor, Welltower, and some other small companies that, not necessarily small companies, but smaller relative to a lot of the big earnings we got going on this week. So, according to Goldman Sachs, hedge funds have shifted away from technology stocks at the fastest pace in 12 months, redeploying capital into defensive sector like consumer staples. This shift comes as valuations in tech remain extended and yields remain stubbornly high, they say. Can y'all hear the music? You should be able to hear the music now. Music should be good. Let me know. Like when I look at it, it says it's at negative 35 dB, which should be, like, you should be able to hear that. It's not the loudest. I can always turn it up some more. If I turn it up too loud. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I didn't change anything over the weekend too. Here, I got you guys. Hold on. Is that better? Hey, what's up, Faye, Graf, Brad, Lee, Eduardo, Farmer, Ryan, Glitters, JX, Yowzer, Sam, Nick, William, Pawn, Claire, Jeff, Harris, Beach Bum, what's up, man? ER, Average Joe, Ray, Wood, T, Simple, RPM. What's up, guys? Good morning. Let me change this to live so I can see all you guys. What's up, Good News? Hardway. Yeah, I mean, I play the music loud. Is my vocal audio a little bit louder than normal? Weird. Oh yeah, I had to turn it down from Mitch yesterday, last week. That's probably what it was. Yeah, it's all good, brother. All right, so again, President announced the deal with Europe. Stock futures rise ahead of or after the EU trade deal ahead of FOMC. Elon and Tesla, they're the unnamed client in a $16.5 billion microchip deal. These are all stuff moving markets. If we take a look at treasuries this morning, right? If we take a look at treasury yields, they are down, showing optimism, lower interest rate sentiment, and they're down, right? Well, they started down. They've actually spiked pretty recently. So they're actually up a little bit technically today. Here's the 10-year. Yeah, I mean, this was 3 hours ago, but 3 hours ago, Treasury yields were low. Now they're up to 4.4% for the 10-year Treasury yield. You know, again, interest rates and yields follow each other. And so if the FOMC is hawkish and they raise rates, as an example, yields are going to go up, right? Which is kind of where we're at over the last 3 years. If you look at stuff, after 2020, we did a lot of economic stimulus, brought interest rates down. By 2022, inflation had spiked from a lot of different things, stimulus checks, supply chain problems, just a lot of issues regarding inflation. A lot of economic stimulus, a lot of QE, quantitative easing, money printing. And so the consequence was inflation. And one of the things you saw following the Fed pivoting to a more hawkish stance with like rate hikes in 2022, 2023, is you saw yields go up, right? And so 4.4% is pretty high for, low risk assets like bonds. 4.4% is not low. It's pretty high relative to normal. If you look at all time here, you can kind of see, at least over the last, you got to take everything into context because the 80s were kind of like a different animal. But when compared to the last 15 years, 4.4% is way above what we're used to. And this is probably because like interest rates are so high right now. They're still, 6-7%, and you're going to pay for a 30-year mortgage 6 or 7%. And so again, yields and interest rates follow each other. If interest rates are high, yields are going to be high too. And bond prices and yields inverse each other. So if bonds get sold off, yields spike, and if bonds get bought up, yields go down. And when do bonds get bought up? When people are sketched out by regular markets. So understanding those correlations help you follow finance a little better. We try to go over them once a day regarding bond yields. If we take a look at the rate cut or rate expectations by the CME Watch tool, still looking 2% likely that we're going to raise rates, or I'm sorry, that we're going to cut rates on Wednesday, day after tomorrow. 2%. This probability is decreased. Last time I looked at it, it was 2.7. Now it's 2.1. So it's looking less likely that we are going to cut rates day after tomorrow. But if you take a look at September here, September is 60% likely that we're going to do a 25 basis point cut, a little bit over 60% likely of any size cut. So still pretty probable we're going to cut in September. I think especially with this tariff news, the European Union trade deal announcement, I think it's even more likely that we are going to cut in September, because I think that opens the door to a cut in September. It means less potential economic weakness from, tariffs. And yeah, that's what I think. So we'll see what happens. There's a chance. Yeah, very, very small chance. Just look, man. Every time we do a Fed meeting, you have all these people that bet on all these wild expectations. And the reality of it is, it's not happening. We're not cutting rates Wednesday. We're just not. Anybody that tells you we are doesn't know what they're talking about. I mean, there's a chance, but it's not a big chance at all. And as we get closer, the reality of it is, as we get closer to the FOMC, with less justification to change the probabilities here, the odds of a rate cut are going to go down more, right? They're going to decrease as we get closer and closer to the Fed meeting. This will probably be under 1%. This will probably be under 1% for July's meeting in terms of rate cut odds by the time we get to the actual Fed meeting. And so that's just not a big probability at all. That's a wild, betting on that's dumb. Betting on that's dumb. Is this holiday music? Yeah, I mean, I see Pawn has to go to jury duty. I mean, I'm going to preface this with, I am not recommending you do anything here. But I've been summoned to jury duty. All I'm saying is, I got a cold that day. miraculously it disappeared the next day. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, NASDAQ at 23,500. We'll see what happens. We're under the 200 exponential here. I like watching the 200 EMA. Tesla up on the Samsung deal. Nike up. Nvidia up. Intel still struggling after getting hit last week after earnings. AMD up a lot with Nvidia. Google at 195s rebounded a little bit. They had earnings last week, so they're kind of volatile. They went up from earnings, gave back some of it at the opening bell, moved sideways, and now we're up again today. Apple sitting at 214.30s, so Apple sitting pretty stagnant, sideways, but in a range. Netflix pulling back a little bit after hitting over 1200s for a little while. Amazon climbing higher at 230s. What else do we have? Yeah, well, Netflix is getting into live sports. You saw it with like the Jake Paul Tyson fight. Netflix getting into live sports is what it is. And I think as that market grows for them, they're going to do very well. I've been saying this for years. As soon as I heard Netflix was getting into live sports, it made me immediately bullish on Netflix. And since I've said that, Netflix was at like $800 a share. Now Netflix is currently at like $1,200. So, yeah, Netflix is up big. Pulled back a little bit, though. PPI didn't come in at 0% last week. Last week, we didn't have PPI data. And again, I know people, look, I think it's certainly a little bit more clear. You could look at this. The argument that the Federal Reserve is going to use, which again, I'm going to preface this with, I'm not saying I agree with them. The argument that the Federal Reserve is going to use is that inflation could spike from some of these levies. Some of these tariffs are going to make inflation spike, or could make inflation spike. That's one of the arguments, but I think with the deals coming out, it's looking a little bit more optimistic. The only issue is that we've delayed the China deal. Even after, they said they weren't going to delay anything past August 1st. Now we have another 90 days for a U.S.-China deal. And so that was delayed even though they said they wouldn't. So, but I mean, at least, it's better than the actual tariffs us just getting hit with the actual tariffs, because that would cause inflation. And so a pause to the tariffs is certainly better than no pause to the tariffs, I think. But the argument the Federal Reserve is going to use, they're going to say, where's the weak economy to justify cutting early? I think you could probably argue a cut, but it's not hyper clear enough to make that decision easy, in my opinion. I think you could probably argue a cut. I think payroll numbers have been somewhat resilient. Unemployment's low. I think inflation data is relatively low. It's in the 2s, which is good. I know they have a 2% target, but anything in the 2s, 2 point something, whatever, is generally pretty solid for CPI or PCE inflation. And so the question, but on the other end, we did have negative quarter one GDP. Quarter one GDP was 0.5% negative for quarter one of this year. Wednesday, we'll have quarter two data come out, and we'll see what that looks like. But I think it's somewhat ambiguous. I think it's somewhere in the middle. It's hard to figure out what the right decision is. And even people who generally supported earlier rate cuts like Bowman said there's not going to be much difference from a July to a September cut. But we'll see. Do you see a correction soon? I really don't know. I think we're up a lot and extended in a lot of different markets, but I also think it's possible we keep running. But I think we are extended in a lot of different markets. You know, I think Nvidia microchips are at all-time highs. I think the Nasdaq's around all-time highs. I think the S&P is at around all-time highs. And so, yeah, I mean, did we break all-time highs again today? Yeah, it looks like it. So, I mean, we could keep running. It's possible we do. But I think there's more strategic areas to buy. But we could also continue to go higher because sometimes that's just what the market does. Sometimes the market just keeps coming. And in that regard, the only real way to hedge against that is dollar cost averaging into it over long periods of time. But short term, you never freaking know, and you got to just be willing to. We might crash tomorrow. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I think it's possible, but I don't know if it's probable. But it's possible for sure. Hey, what's up, Disciplined? Yeah, I think the European Union deal's a good deal. I think it's optimism. What's up, Fred? Remember, guys, not an investment professional. I'm not liable if you lose money. I might have no idea what I'm talking about. I might be wildly wrong about anything and everything I say. Do not copy me. I'm not an investment professional. I understand all the stuff on screen. Sometimes I trade and lose off stream. You might not see it. Not an investment professional. I might have no idea what I'm talking about. Don't copy me. With that said, the Nasdaq is at all-time highs, which is kind of crazy. We'll have to draw some levels here. You can see we hit these all-time high levels. The new all-time high on the NQ is now 585. So this is the new all-time high on the Nasdaq, 585. If we take a look at the SPY here, is the SPY at all-time highs? S&P at all-time highs as well. 640s. I'm pretty sure that's all-time highs. Yeah, 640.20s. New all-time high for the Nasdaq. New all-time high for the S&P. Let me refresh this. Yeah. The EU deal justifies a bull run and optimism for markets for Europe. It's bad. Sector rotation. Yeah, that's possible. Target. I don't dislike Target as a company. I like Target generally as a company. But you never know. We're kind of sideways right now, though. You can see how the Nasdaq's sideways. Still watching Nvidia. Tesla had the good news for the deal. Nvidia all-time highs are 175.22. So we're close to all-time highs on Nvidia. Yeah, so the U.S. and China are meeting as trade truce nears expiration, but they did delay it another 90 days is what I saw over the weekend. So the president just said we're in great shape with the United Kingdom. He's meeting with UK Prime Minister Starmer and holds a bilateral meeting. U.S. Trade Representative Greer said we don't feel under pressure to have more deals. He's more interested in good deals versus quick deals. This is what he said. He said on August 1st deadline, the president's more interested in good deals than quick deals. Expects continued monitoring of agreements so far. Says there's interest for both U.S. president and China president to meet their prime minister. He said, I don't expect a big breakthrough today regarding Trump. Regarding U.S. Trade Rep Greer. He said, I expect continued monitoring of the agreement so far. On China trade, he said, I want to move forward in a positive way. In digital services, taxes are also an area to keep working on. I want to keep working on steel. And he said the European Union will accept aspects of U.S. auto standards. This is all in a CNBC interview about 10 minutes ago. NASDAQ is heading down a little bit, but we're also like very choppy and sideways here. Remember, guys, this is the FOMC week, right? So every 6 weeks, the FOMC makes a rate decision. You know, their job is to maintain balance. If the economy is weak and they need to stimulate the economy for whatever reason, you should also add a condition there of like price stability. But if the economy is weak and the Fed needs to step in, they'll lower interest rates. They'll do a more desperate thing called quantitative easing, which is printing money, creating online bank reserves, and then using that money to buy up bonds and other assets, injecting liquidity, expanding their balance sheet. This ultimately helps bring interest rates down a little bit faster. But it's a more desperate thing versus just cutting the federal funds rate, which has a little bit more lag, you know, if that makes sense. You know, the other end of that is like if inflation's a problem, if price stability isn't there, if we have rising prices and inflation and there's chaos in markets because of that, then they will raise interest rates. The logic is you raise the federal funds rate, you kind of push the U.S. economy down a little bit. When interest rates are higher, businesses don't expand as easily because they have worse interest rates to do so. People spend less. You know, in theory, it should lower inflation. They did this after the inflation spiked to almost 10% in 2022. It did help bring inflation down a little bit faster. And they've basically been maintaining those rates. They cut a full percentage point, 100 basis points last year, at the end of last year. But haven't done anything since then in terms of cuts. They've basically been pausing interest rates since then. And now we are essentially waiting for Wednesday to see what their next decision is, which is almost certainly going to be another pause. Still looking like September is the week. 3 months ago, July looked like the week. Yeah, well, no, it's always subject to change. And the reason it's subject to change is because we have incoming economic reports coming out that might push the odds more or less. Now, again, right now the odds are 60% for September. A way in which that might change is if in August, as an example, in August, if we get a lot of stuff come out this week as well as in August that on one end, if we get higher inflation data, worse price stability, higher inflation, stronger labor market and economy, low unemployment, high payrolls, that is going to push us farther away from rate cuts, potentially. At least it's going to change the odds, probably to some extent, in terms of it being less likely for us to cut rates in September, right? And again, the situation would be if we get high inflation, price spiking, CPI, PCE inflation spiking, we get high payrolls, we get a strong labor market, it's going to make it less likely that we're going to cut rates in September. On the other end of that, if over the next month and a half, including this week, we get low PCE inflation, low inflation data, we get weak labor markets, we get, bad GDP data on Wednesday. If we get weak economics and low inflation, it's going to increase the odds of a rate cut in September. And so we'll start to know a little bit closer to September. But yeah, that's essentially what's going on. What's up, Ludwig? Top of the morning to you. Hey, what's up, man? Hey, what's up, Lee? Yeah, y'all hit the like button. Yeah, I'm pretty neutral. I don't really get into politics, you know. And again, I've said it once. I'll say it again. I think we're somewhere in the middle. Yeah, I think we're somewhere in the middle. All right, so the president and UK's Prime Minister Starmer is speaking at some golf event. Morgan Stanley also sees the S&P 500 hitting 7,200 by mid-2026, which is next year. Bank of America sees pressure on Apple ahead of Thursday's earnings due to tariffs, regulatory risks, and slow AI progress. It still keeps a buy rating and a 235 price target. People are going to be paying attention to gross margins on Apple. $900 million in tariff costs weighed on results. Bank of America sees Q3 revenue at 90.2, EPS at 145, slightly above consensus. Margins may improve with new high-end products, including a slim iPhone expected this fall. All right, guys, we are at 23,005s. 23,005s. Yeah, I mean, we'll see if he says anything.
It's a violent situation, and I was able to. They liked Trump. They wanted to make a trade deal with Trump. They wanted us to take their rare earth. They want to give us their rare earth. And I got to know the leader of the Congo. I got to know both of them indirectly. And I called him. I said, let's end the war. I don't want anything until you end the war. And we ended the war. As you know,
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know if he's going to be saying anything market related. This is him meeting UK Prime Minister Starmer at a Scotland golf course. Scotland's really nice, but yeah, I mean, I'm not really going to get into politics. I'm really not. Just not going to do it. But, I mean, even how I naturally am as a person, I'm not really super political in nature. I just don't really get involved with it. Somebody asked me the other day, they said, hey, who's the next pick for president after, you know? I have no idea. I don't even know any politicians, you know. I genuinely don't know any politicians to throw up there. I don't watch them enough to really know. I'm not against you. Doesn't matter which side you're on, you know. But I'm not really going to get involved with it. Do you use level 2 to trade? No. Level 2 is highly manipulated. Personally, like all these fake orders get thrown up. People act like they can digest it and see something. Honestly, I think it's a little bit of a placebo effect. You know, I think it's a little bit of a placebo effect. I think there's useful things like volume. You know, I think there's a lot of useful things that you can do with volume and stuff like that. But just looking at the base level 2, I'm not really a big fan of it. But everybody's different. Some people might be able to use it right. I don't know. I'm just not one that uses it. Palantir? Where's Palantir at? 160s. This is where Palantir's at. Man. Yeah, I mean, bookmap visualizing order flow can make sense. Yeah, Palantir. Big move up to 161s. All right, so Monet downgrades Coinbase to neutral from buy rating. The Genius Act, Circle's IPO, and the Clarity Act are all positive. The firm wants to see more real-world adoption and rising transaction volumes, especially on Base, before becoming bullish in Coinbase. Jefferies says NVIDIA's H2O stockpile won't meet the accelerating China demand for NVIDIA. Jeffrey says NVIDIA's H2O AI chip stockpile, which is 600 to 900,000 units, falls short of the demand China gives it, which could hit 1.8 million units following a temporary easing of U.S. export restrictions. Chinese firms still prefer NVIDIA chips due to its CUDA ecosystem, superior performance, and limited local alternatives. Jeffries expects strong demand to continue even for downgraded future chips like the upcoming B30. B30 is set to come out in quarter 4 of this year. Coinbase. Volatile this morning if you take a look at it, but gapped up really nicely to 4s, back down to 395s. All-time highs are around almost 450. So just volatile, as is Bitcoin. Microsoft up a little bit today. Yeah. Yeah, the president said he's very disappointed in the Russian president. He said, I'm reducing the 50 days I gave him. Whew. Look how sideways we are right now. I don't know what to do here. I mean, we're just too sideways for me to be super interested in buying up anything. There's just not much to do here. All right, so in terms of the EU-US trade deal, we're going to make a post kind of breaking it down on x.com. At Beginner Trades, give me a follow at Beginner Trades. We're about 25 followers away from 4,000. Only a joint statement is expected in the coming days. A formal agreement hasn't been finalized by the European Union and the U.S. The U.S. plans to apply 50% tariff on most imports, including automobiles. Certain sectors like aerospace and semiconductor equipment will be exempt. European Union is committed to reducing select tariffs on American agriculture and industrial goods. Tariffs on steel and aluminum are going to stay at 50%, though they might shift towards a quota-based system, and European firms are expected to invest up to $600 billion in the U.S., with most funding coming from the private sector. Over the next 3 years, Europe will continue purchasing $750 billion approximately worth of U.S. energy, particularly LNG and critical raw materials. While not officially listed in the deal, European acquisitions of US AI chips and defense equipment are widely anticipated for this deal. So. Hmm. Let me see. All right. All right, so yeah, we just posted that. Look at the NASDAQ come back down here, testing the bottom of this range. NVIDIA at 174.62s. I'm going to try to day trade some today, of course, like I always do, but we're not really getting any ease of trade setups. We asked people earlier this morning, are you bullish or bearish on the FOMC week this week? 72% say bullish, 28% are bearish this week. We got a lot of stuff that could move markets this week, a lot of stuff. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm waiting for those earnings too. Yeah. Yeah, let me put up breaking news here. Morgan Stanley sees S&P hitting 7,200. German government 2026 draft budget includes record investment for Europe, 127 billion according to Reuters. Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba says there's no change in his intention to stay in office. Yeah, outside of that, we haven't really had any big breaking news. The president speaking with the UK Prime Minister was one of the big ones. Like, maybe I'll try a little trade here, just because I'm bored. Not really bored, but... I was going to buy this dip, but it's alright. We got a lot of green here. I was going to attack the choppiness. I'm going to add a little bit more to this here. Very small trade. There we go. That's not bad. We can probably hold it close to break even now, but hopefully it ends up running up to 505 is kind of what I want. But I might add a little bit more too, but you gotta just be prepared to cut it fast. It's kind of hard to figure out the right move here. All right, we're starting to head up a little bit. The range is so tiny today, man. I think everybody's just waiting for the FOMC. See what happens. You know, I'm gonna pivot. I'm gonna cut it right there, and then maybe pivot to a short if I can. I didn't want to short it here. I wanted to add a little bit higher, like here maybe. But it's kind of volatile. We're at the bottom of the range, but I want to see if we break down a little bit. Maybe add one more here. It kind of retraced down right when I was trying to add. I really wanted like here, but it's all right. I think 500 is probably a pretty big level here too. Psychologically, I think 500 makes sense to watch, but we've been sideways for so long. I think eventually the sideways trend is going to break, but either way, it's small. Waiting for those earnings too. Yeah, you mean like regarding Wednesday? Yeah. Wednesday we got a lot of stuff. There we go. I'm gonna take some of this off right there, lock it in. There's just not much range. The range is so small. Like this is very small range. Basically nothing. It's honestly the range is tightening up in the NASDAQ too. Overbuy on the all-time high a while ago. Yeah, I mean, if we start to head up, I'm definitely going to get more bullish as we get closer to all-time highs. I'm definitely going to get a little bit more long biased if we get closer to all-time highs. But down here, I think we've been sideways for... We've been sideways for an hour and a half in markets. We haven't really moved at all. So... The trend is slightly negative here, but you never know. I don't think it's easy. Yeah, we're basically flat on the day. So, I mean, and the range is so small, we're in a tiny trade here. It doesn't matter too much either way. I just want to see if we start breaking down, but the range isn't really big enough to be worried about the position. Yeah. We did have Mexican trade balance data come out. I'm looking at Nvidia, I'm looking at Tesla. Nvidia is still pretty flat. Not really moving. Tesla down under the 200 exponential. We got to watch like Apple as well. I'm looking at Palantir, but we got to watch like Apple too. Apple at 214s. I've heard a lot of people mention meme stocks recently. AMC. GameStop's still at 23s. It's been there for a long time. Yeah, well, for the China trade deal to get extended, again, after they said that August was the final extension to August 1st, is an interesting dynamic. I don't know how to feel about it. On one hand, I think extending the deal between them is good. On the other end, I think at a certain point you have to stop extending it, and you know what I mean. But it's hard to tell. I think it's somewhat ambiguous as well, you know. All right, so now we're back green or slightly. Let's see if we can break down now, but Yeah, I mean, the problem is, like, we're so sideways right now, chat. I think it's hard to figure out what to do anyway. Like, anybody that's saying that the next move here after this is obvious or predictable, you know, of course it's not. Nobody freaking knows what we're gonna do right here. There's just no range. Yeah, I'm going to cut this if we start. I took half off break even right there. It's just so sideways. The range is so small. We'll let this last one work. We're basically flat. There's just no range to really make money in, and I don't think the movement here is good at all. The problem is there's no liquidity in anything ahead of the FOMC meeting. Like, the liquidity and everything. So look at Nvidia here. Nvidia usually moves in pre-market. It's very slow. What's the QQQ look like? Even the QQQ looks pretty low liquidity. I mean, it's moving a little bit, but it's not a lot at all. And for 8:15, usually we get a little bit better. Yeah, Jolts tomorrow. We got a lot of stuff tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. Today's the only day where we don't really have much going on, you know. Baba said to launch an AI-powered glasses. Really? Baba? Alibaba? The wholesaler? I mean, they're up this morning. Well, yeah, but what they say during the FOMC is going to matter more now. All right, so there's the big breakdown we were looking for, but even here, I don't think the next move is obvious. We'll hold the rest break even now. It's broken down enough to where we can. All right, we just cut it right there. I mean, we're basically flat on the day still, but we got out green on the rest. I'm just too worried it's going to bounce at these lows. Might continue down, though. We'll see. I'd hope for it to continue down, even though I got out, just because it gives some trend to follow there. Yeah, we got Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Meta this week for sure. Yeah, those are big stories. Yeah, Tesla at 320s, but I mean, this is obviously a bearish trend. We have a longer term bear action, consolidation phase, and then break down to test low. You know, I mean, this is a bearish thing. It doesn't mean it's going to go bearish. This is why I always tell people, like, anybody that acts like the next move is super obvious in one direction, you never freaking know. Y'all haven't traded long enough if that's what you think, because the variance is so high with short-term movements like this. Nobody freaking knows which way we're going. Nobody does. You could act like you do, but you probably don't. Yeah, I'm looking up news. Bitcoin marginally benefits from EU-US trade. Citi's Bitcoin price target is 135,000 by year end. I think that's one of the more reasonable price targets for Bitcoin, considering its movement. 135K. Where do y'all think Bitcoin's going to end this year? I've heard some wild numbers. I've heard like 300,000-400,000, and I just do not think that's going to happen. Not by the end of this year. You know, we got freaking 4 months left before the end of the year. You know, I just doubt that's going to happen. I hope it does, but it's unlikely that it does. You know, and usually you hear people giving out these price targets. They're giving out these wild 400K, 500K, a million. You know, like last year, I think Kathy Wood. It might have been somebody else, but I think Kathy Wood last year said Bitcoin would be at 1 million by the end of last year. Well, that didn't happen. And I think people have confirmation bias. Anything in the ones I think is reasonable. I think 200K is a stretch, but it's possible. Outside of that, I don't think anything over that's happening. But again, maybe I'll eat my words. I might be wrong. I don't know. All right, guys. Nasdaq still testing these lows. Tesla breaking down to 320s here. Apple at 214s. It's data dependent too. Yeah, to a certain extent, probably. Won't there be a big pullback in September? I mean, not necessarily. I know we had the what's called the September slump. I might short this a little bit more here, guys. I mean, we made money, I think, on the last one. I'm going to jump in. Oh, dude, every time I want to jump in, we have some big candle wick that pushes us back. I might add a little bit more to this, though. But, let me see if I can add a little bit more to this. I mean, sometimes we get a September slump, but it's certainly not every September. You know, what you got to understand is that we have like monthly data, or we have monthly stats for each month that comes out, or that come out, that kind of gives you a little bit of a guide into what we might potentially do that month, but it's never set in stone. And you shouldn't look at it like it's set in stone. We've had very green Septembers before. And so it's never like, all right, I'm going to add to this, I think, and just see what happens. See if we retrace back down. It's never set in stone. You shouldn't look at it like it's set in stone either, because nobody freaking knows. Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin's valuable because of digital currency is the future. I mean, we're almost there already. Nobody uses cash. Digital currency is the future. Bitcoin was the original digital currency for the most part. For the most part. And you can also send it anywhere in the world pretty easily without red tape for the most part. It's not really anonymous, but you can send it anywhere in the world pretty easily. And so there's value to it. There's innate value. It's also pretty protected from hackers. Not hackers necessarily trying to steal your info, but you can't really fake it. You can't counterfeit it. The blockchain technology is a useful technology, you know. But it's also one of those things where there's a finite amount of them that are able to be mined from the proof of work system. And so you can mine them, and in theory, as time goes on, each individual coin should become more valuable because of that, you know. Alright, so we're back to flat. Oh, don't bounce off of my level. Don't you hate it when you bounce off of your entry? The range is so small, though, guys. Like, we have no range here. I thought this was a little bit more bearish, but Tesla ended up rebounding back up. There we go. We're almost flat. Now we're green. Let's see if we can head down some more here. I'm going to cut a piece of this off here. I mean, this looks slightly bearish, but you never know. Tesla coming down a little bit as well. Nvidia is what you want to watch too. Like, look at Nvidia. See if Nvidia moves. I'm still looking at 23.5s as like kind of like a risk level. The range is so small. Yeah, well, $100,000 for Bitcoin is a big milestone level. That's a big level people are watching, paying attention to. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be a great day for anything, though, Pawn. There's just no easy money today, it looks like. I mean, we got a slight downward trend here, but we're still very sideways in range. And I think because of, like, all the stuff, we got big tech, we've got payrolls this week, unemployment, we got jobless claims, we've got GDP data, we've got PCE inflation. Just because of the whole gang of economic reports that we got coming this week. I don't know if it's going to be a great day for day trading at all. I think we might have choppy sideways action, personally. You never know, but that's kind of what I think. I don't think it's easy to make money today at all. I think it's kind of difficult, and I don't think the direction that the market is going is easy. I think we broke all-time highs really earlier. I'm going to cut this. We had one green trade, one red trade, but this is mostly driven by Nvidia pushing up. But we're kind of sideways. We don't really have any news coming out today. We have a lot of stuff for the rest of this week. Today's kind of boring. And again, if you look at the range, it's just not easy. Today is sideways. Yeah, well, it looks like this is driven by Nvidia and microchips. But it's honestly really not that big of a move up. It's relatively small, although it looks big because of how sideways we've been. You gotta understand, we were up here, like just to zoom out, this is all-time highs, and we were up here basically at 1 a.m. this morning, 12:30 in the morning. And so now we've basically been here for an hour and a half. And so we're starting to go up a little bit, but we're still very small range. The real question is, what do we do here at this level? I don't know. Whether Tesla pushes up, whether Nvidia pushes up. Yeah, there's some days where I just don't trade. I don't think Powell's going to crash markets. I know everybody always thinks that we're going to crash during the FOMC meeting, and it's not always the case. I mean, we rarely crash from the FOMC meeting. We might dump to the downside, but crash is a different thing. I don't think that's going to happen. The only way we'd crash, I think, if Powell came out really, really restrictive, and I think the market wants rate cuts, but if Powell came out really, really restrictive, that's a situation in which we might like see a negative red response in finance. Yeah, I mean, my instincts today are to trade very small and kind of slow. It doesn't matter too much either way, to be honest. I don't think the direction, I think we have all-time highs up here. Right? I think the closer we get to this, like I think if we start to go like this, and we get within a range of this all-time high, like right here, that's a situation where I'm going to be a lot more comfortable going long if we start to get within this range of all-time highs, because then we'll probably at least test them. And so if I can buy at the bottom of that area, I'm okay with that. Short-term trades. But this is kind of no man's land for me, to be honest. Like, this right here is just kind of no man's land, because we're farther enough away from the all-time high level right here to where I'm not really interested in buying it. And I think that's a situation where I should just be patient and wait. We're not down barely anything on the day, but I don't really want to get caught up taking dumb trades either. So I got to try to be selective. Ally Financial files for a fixed to floating rate senior notes offering. They didn't discuss size according to an SEC filing. But China Vice Premier arrives in Sweden for talks with U.S. Treasury Secretary and U.S. Trade Representative Greer. We'll see what happens. We're rejecting at that 200 exponential. Hey, what's up, Tobias? Gold futures. Where's gold at today? I don't know if I looked at gold. Gold down, I'm guessing. Yeah, gold is down. Yeah, gold's red. I mean, we got a lot of optimism regarding trade and economics, so that's why gold's red. Just gold is seen as a safe haven, and so if things are looking more optimistic, gold usually doesn't go up. Yeah, again, the big stories today, if you're just out joining us, is we are up big on a UK-US trade deal. Now, a formal agreement hasn't been specifically finalized, but a joint statement is expected in the coming days. The U.S. is planning to apply 15% tariff on most imports from the European Union, including automobiles. Certain critical sectors like aerospace and semiconductor manufacturing equipment will be exempt, which is good. EU has committed to reducing select tariffs on agriculture in the U.S. and industrial goods at a later stage. Tariff on steel and aluminum is still going to be at 50%, though the European Union may shift towards a quota-based system in response, and European firms are expected to invest up to $600 billion in the U.S., with most funding coming from the private sector. And over the next 3 years, European Union will commit to purchasing about $750 billion worth of U.S. energy, particularly LNG and critical raw materials. European acquisitions of U.S. AI chips and defense equipment are anticipated for this deal as well. So, yeah, look, and here we go. We're just right back down. Yeah, I mean, we'll see if we get an 830 scrum here, but it's still very slow in terms of reports today. We don't really have a lot of big stuff going on. NASDAQ coming right back down. So again, we're still kind of confirming this flat, choppy range. We might get a push up. If we break the 200 exponential, maybe it's good. But for now, we're kind of slow. Intel at 20.8. The European Union deal's good, for sure. They also postponed the U.S.-China tariff deadline. Again, 90 days postponement of the tariffs again. So when's 90 days from now? That's 3 months. So what are we looking like for? We're looking like November 1st is when we're going to hopefully see something there. Gold's still breaking down, though. We got to watch NVIDIA microchips as well. We didn't really have any 830 economics today. Kind of boring. Yeah, I don't know. I think we're too flat for me to really get interested in trading. Markets are on pause ahead of the FOMC meeting, I think. Definitely not my birthday. I meant China tariff postponed news, not pause, sorry. Yeah, I mean, while it's good in some ways, it's also, I think it's a bad sign of like we're continuing to postpone even though we said we wouldn't, is the problem I have with it, but you never know. Yeah, of course, the big story is the European Union deal. And we posted some details to that on our x.com page. Interest just seems to be slow. U.S. trade negotiation team arrives at a venue for talks with China, which is good. Canada June wholesale trade most likely rose 0.7% from the previous month, is what they're saying. China trade deal, or the China team for negotiating trade arrived at the Stockholm venue. Nike's up a lot this morning. Nike had some news that came out. You can see Nike's actually gapping up. So Nike is up specifically on, here, I'll break it down. Where is it? Nike rallied 3.4%. They had an upgrade from JP Morgan. So an upgrade from JP Morgan for Nike, projecting strong earnings through 2030. You can see Nike gapping up about 3 to 3.5% at 79.20s from 76.20s. So about, a little bit over 3%, honestly. So not bad for them, but yeah, they got an upgrade from JP Morgan. Dallas Fed manufacturing worth anything? No, not really. The next big data we have tomorrow is the JOLTS job opening report. We have CB consumer confidence and JOLTS at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Case-Shiller house price index at 9 o'clock. And 8:30 we have the good trades balance data at negative 98.3 billion expected. So that's the biggest economic report we have coming out soon. Wednesday we have a lot of things. We've got MBA 30-year mortgage rates early at 7 a.m. Eastern. We've got ADP non-farm employment data, which is really interesting because the last ADP data showed negative 33,000 for jobs. So we saw negative 33K for jobs last time. This time it's expected at a positive 82,000. But this varies wildly for the non-farm employment change. We got GDP expected at 2.4% quarter over quarter for quarter two. So 2.4% for quarter two GDP coming out Wednesday, 8:30. And this is the Fed meeting day as well. We got the Bank of Canada interest rate decision. We got pending home sales. We got the FOMC decision, 4.5% is what they're expecting here. And again, then Thursday, we've got PCE, inflation, jobless claims. And then Friday, we got non-farm payrolls and unemployment data, as well as ISM manufacturing data, as well as Michigan consumer sentiment data at 10. So a lot of stuff going live over the next few days. Again, the NASDAQ's just in this choppy range. I mean, I can draw some levels here is what I'm kind of looking at now. We got maybe right here. But, we've got a lot of room away, and it's just kind of sideways. Like, we have maybe some levels that we can pay attention to, but the range is so small, it's kind of hard to figure out where you want to watch. I mean, we could look at this level now here maybe, but tiny range. Hey, good luck at jury duty. Yeah, I mean, I've been conveniently sick for all my jury duty letters, you know. Cough, cough. But I don't think I'd mind going if it was like a cool case. You know what I mean? If it was like a cool case where I had to be a juror, I might actually like it. The power, you know. I like true crime. I might get into it, but yeah. All right, guys. Good luck. Honestly, I'm kind of joking. The last time I got jury notices, I didn't even find them until it was over. And so I don't really check actual mail very much. Most of that's gone digital, you know. Robert says, if I ever have to be forced to go to jury duty, someone's going to jail. Auto guilty, you know. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'd probably swing the other way. Like, I feel like unless they genuinely hurt somebody in a massive way, I'm going to say they're innocent. Because, you know, because screw the government, you know. But with that said, you know, there's a lot of nuance there, and it depends on the context of everything. If somebody's genuinely hurt, maybe, you know. Hey, do me a favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It's a big week. We're going to cover all of it live. All right, so U.S. Trade Representative Greer is seen arriving at trade talks with China in Stockholm. Bassett arrived for China trade talks in Stockholm. So they're about to get some trade talks done, it looks like. We'll see what happens. Are y'all optimistic around these trade talks they're holding today in Sweden, in Stockholm, Sweden? Let me know. FOMC is Wednesday, 2 p.m. It's the decision, 2:30 is the press conference. All right, guys, we got about 50 minutes into the opening bell. Tesla's still creeping back up, but still very sideways here. Nothing's really moving today, guys. Here's gold. Here's bond yields. Gold's still breaking down. Yields still up a little bit, elevated relative to where they were Friday. Yields are up to 4.4+%. Nasdaq's climbing a little higher. Anything big today? Not in terms of economic reports. The market's kind of sideways and choppy because we don't really know what we're going to get. Yeah, I mean, again, you seem to miss out on the very important context of what I said, which is that if somebody got hurt in that way, you know. Sandy. Hey, thank you, World Puzzle. I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much. What's your target on the S&P before the crazy crash of 30%? When do you think the crazy crash is going to happen? Do y'all think we crash this year sometime? We already kind of crashed once. Like, NASDAQ dropped, what, 26%? After Liberation Day tariff announcement? 26%. We ended up rebounding pretty quickly over the next 3-4 weeks, but still, we already had what many would consider a crash, or at least, at the very least, a correction, April. in April of this year. Do y'all think we would genuinely crash again? I don't know. I don't know if that's true. We'll see. I don't know. First of August to August 8th is a mini crash. From what? The trade deadline? I think the biggest countries we've already kind of extended with China. We've got a deal done with Europe. You know, UK is looking pretty optimistic. They were one of the first people we got to deal with. So, do y'all think it happens this year? I don't know if it happens this year. We'll see. I think we're also kind of extended, though, so I'm not really hyper interested in buying. But NVIDIA's starting to push up. It's now over the 200 exponential, over the volume weighted average price on a short-term basis. You see it climbing up here. Yeah, I mean, if we're going to get volatility, this week might be it. We've got the Fed meeting Wednesday, JOLTS job report, consumer confidence tomorrow, GDP data Wednesday, non-farm employment Wednesday, PCE inflation Thursday, jobless claims Thursday, and more, I think, Thursday. And then Friday, we have non-farm payrolls, unemployment, Michigan consumer sentiment, and ISM manufacturing PMI data. So we got a lot of stuff this week that might move markets, and this is all leading into the August 1st deadline. And so Friday's August 1st. And so this is all leading into that deadline. If we're going to get volatility, I would say it's going to be after Wednesday's FOMC decision. But we might get volatility prior to that just because of the economic reports and stuff we have coming out around that. We also have Tesla moving back up a little bit, but Tesla's pretty flat too. Tesla is up because the other big news on the day today, chat, is that Tesla had a deal, an AI deal done with Samsung that was announced early this morning. And so Tesla did have a deal done with a $16.5 billion chip supply deal with Samsung. Supports its next-gen AI chip agenda. It's up because of that. So Tesla had a deal done with Samsung. Intel's now breaking down. It's at 2074s. Mara has raised $950 million to buy more Bitcoin. Honestly, Dogecoin is holding over 20 cents. It's at 24 cents. I wouldn't really call this launching. This is a pretty small range. When in doubt, zoom out. This is all we've gotten. Maybe we're launching, but I don't know. It's heading up a little bit for sure. It's over the 200 exponential. It has to do with mostly NVIDIA getting up there. Tesla now dipped back down though. Crypto crash this year? Maybe. When in doubt, short. I think it's actually more profitable to long the NASDAQ. I think longing the NASDAQ's the easier move in markets for sure. But everybody's different. There was a time not that long ago where Dogecoin at 37 cents was a good price. Yeah, it didn't last long though, to be honest. That's why I said Doge is holding over 20-something cents. I don't necessarily like Doge long term. I don't know about Doge. I think Doge is one of the OG cryptocurrencies though, so it might always have a place, but you never know. But I think there's a chance it goes up over time because just the nature of crypto is sometimes the most OG coins can be some of the most profitable ones. Not always. You got a lot of old coins that just dumped, but I think there's a chance it does. I don't think it's very high though. Yeah, it's a huge earnings week, though. The president's still speaking, huh? No, not yet. All right, we're starting to creep back up, but Tesla coming back down here. What do you like long-term in stocks? I'm going to preface it. I'm not an investment professional. I have no idea what I'm talking about. Might be wildly wrong. Don't copy me. If you copy me, you might lose. Don't do it. With that said and out the way, I like Apple long-term. Even though Apple, there's a little bit more bearish sentiment coming out with Apple. I do like Apple long-term. I'm pretty bullish in chips overall, although I do think they're all a little manic and extended right now. I think chips are extended. But I think long-term, they're, again, I've said this once, and I'll keep saying it. I think when you look at chips, and you look at if you look at the last few years of AI growth, and then you extrapolate that AI growth over a longer period of time, what does that mean? That means that AI is going to get better and better and better and better. Probably, maybe at different speeds. Maybe we'll have some slumps in growth. Maybe we'll have some big runs in growth. But over a long period of time, meaning decades, AI is probably going to be way more efficient, way better at what it's doing, which means it's going to grow more. We're going to have more of a need for chips unless that type of hardware need changes, which is possible, I guess. But because of that, I think there's a pretty good chance chip stocks are going to do really, really well long term. So, up and coming chips, as well as big boy chips like NVIDIA, I think they're all going to probably do really well over the next 10 or 20 years, but you never know. You never know. Again, we could have some type of different dynamic with chips in AI. It's possible. We have things like the DeepSeek, creating an AI system that doesn't need as many chips, and, that negatively impacted NVIDIA for a second. But I think overall we're still going to need chips. Another sector I like is quantum, but quantum's a little bit more difficult to gauge. You never really know if we are pushing up a little bit. Look, we're over the 200 exponential. We're still kind of flat long term, still down over the last 8 hours, but we're starting to fight it back a little bit. Again, like I said earlier, if we get closer to this level up here, I'm going to become more interested in buying. But this is kind of no man's land for me. We're not really high enough. We're still sideways. It's the week of the FOMC meeting. But going back to what I was saying, quantum, I like quantum, and I think most quantum stocks are pretty cheap right now too. But I think that is a market where it's still really early. And sometimes the key in investing is to get in early, and I get that, and I think that's probably, I think every investor should set aside a little bit of money to invest in a little bit more riskier assets that will still probably do well, but might have greater risk reward. More risk, but more potential reward from it. And I think quantum's that sector right now for a lot of people. There's some other ones, but yeah. Thoughts on Palantir grinding to split levels? You think Palantir is going to get split sometime soon? I don't know. I don't think Palantir is high enough. 160 doesn't seem very high to get split. Usually when companies get split, they're in the, $3, $4, $5, $6, $7, $8, $1,000 range. I think Netflix will get split sometime soon. I think Netflix is going to be split. I don't know. My guess is it's going to be like a 5-to-1 split for Netflix sometime soon, or 1-to-5 split. I mean. I think they're going to split. They're going to reduce the price of Netflix. They're going to split it into 5 pieces and restructure it in that way to make it more affordable. I think that'll probably happen sometime soon because Netflix is now $1,300, $1,200 a share. And so, but who knows when and if. You never know. When will be the next rate cut? We don't know. It's September is most likely the next rate cut's coming. But you never freaking know. Yields did decrease a little bit short term, but they're not really down any significant amount. AI and health is interesting. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you got to question what sectors is AI going to benefit the most, and then maybe you can get some front loading into those sectors as possible. I think some of those sectors, obviously, health could happen. Some people said utilities. I think that makes sense. I think there's a lot of areas you could probably find. You think the SPY runs to 650? Eventually. I don't know when though. Maybe. Yeah, HIMS is interesting, although it's up a lot. It's not risk-free though for HIMS. I mean, it's volatile. What do you think, United Health? United Health got beat down earlier in the year. It's now at 280s. It was once at what, 630s earlier. Late last year it was at 630. It's now at 280s. It's down well over 50% in the last 12 months. Now maybe there's a cheap entry for United Health, to be honest, down here, but you never know. And so I think it'll probably go up from where it's at now, but you never know. I'm not an investment professional. Yeah, I mean, United Health cheap right now. It's down over 50% in the last year. So, I mean, there might be an argument for United Health. I wouldn't mind buying it here, to be honest, but I'm not telling you to buy it. I have no idea. It might keep dropping. You know. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens here. I might buy a little United Health with you, but yeah, I mean, look, so NASDAQ broke over the 200 exponential. Now we're kind of dipping down some here. The question is, do we push back up to test all-time highs? We're pretty far away from all-time highs, though. Like, we tested them way up here at 585s, and now we fell all the way down to 514s. So we're still, like, $75 away from all-time highs. That's pretty far. And so that's why I say this is kind of like no man's land. I could buy it, but I think with today being the start of FOMC week, you know, we'll see what we get. It's always possible we chop on FOMC week. All right, the president is now speaking.
Has become very difficult to deal with in the last couple of days because they don't want to give up these last 20 because they think as long as we have them, they have protection. But I don't think it can work that way. So I'm speaking to Bibi Netanyahu, and we are...
Okay. He's talking about foreign policy. I thought he was talking to UK Prime Minister. I'm not really trying to get into foreign policy. He said the trade deal with the UK brings us closer together. What's your mentality when to sell a long-term position? All-time high on a bull run? I mean, it depends on what the goal is, Matthew. I mean, in theory, you're supposed to never sell. If it's a long-term position in blue chips or S&P, NASDAQ, Dow, and you really believe in the company, you should never sell that thing. You should just hold on to it. It can build generational wealth. You pass those investments on to your children. Now, that's not without risk, but like the way you do it is you invest. The way you do it is you invest. You sit on a handful of companies that you believe in, and over long periods of time, those companies should appreciate a lot. And eventually, maybe if you want to buy a house, maybe if you need the money, you could liquidate and do whatever. You know, yeah, like you said, maybe at all-time highs, maybe on big runs. That's fine. I think a better way to do it is just to cut some of the position, liquidate some of it, and use that money, but keep a base position in it. But everybody's different. But in theory, you should be holding on to investments, you know, long term. But everybody's different, man. Some people are gonna, you know. Right. Exactly, Nick. That's the right move most of the time. As long as you're buying the right companies. As long like the big problem a lot of people like get involved with is that people start buying like mid caps and they treat them like they're long-term investments. And this is something that happens to new investors. They enter the market, they buy up a bunch of speculative mid caps, and sometimes small and mid caps, you know, they've got all these people pumping them up, saying how great the company is and how successful the company is and how big the company is going to be. And they try to make you feel really smart for sitting in bag holding on some of these terrible companies. The problem with mid caps, they can drop 50% in a year, 70% in a year, 80%, 90% in a year. And so you sit on those things, you might lose a lot of your money. But again, they're gonna have these groups of bag holders that are all wrapped up in the same stocks together, and they're patting each other on the back, talking about how smart they are for seeing how great this company is. And then the company keeps going down and down and down and down. And then they make you feel such a part of the community about the stock that instead of selling the wildly depreciating asset that you're holding, you don't want to betray the community that you're now a part of, guys. You know what I mean? Like, that's what happens to a lot of new investors. And again, I'm gonna say this: you shouldn't care about any of that stuff. Screw the community. You know, Apple doesn't need a community around it to be successful. Microsoft doesn't need a community of holders of Microsoft to be successful, patting each other on the back. You know why? Because Microsoft goes up, Apple goes up, Amazon goes up. You know, they don't need that. And so if you find yourself getting pressured by the community to not sell, they're probably a little bit emotional about holding a wildly depreciating stock. And so the point I'm trying to make is when you buy companies, find good market cap size companies that have a long track record of going up, that have good margins, that have revenue growth potentially if you can find them. And then you also kind of want to do thought experiments. You want to find low PE ratios. Do thought experiments about where you think that sector, that stock is going to be in 10, 20 years. You know, and sometimes you're going to be wrong and you might hold on to a loss. But if you invest in 8, 9, 10 companies, a majority of them are, as long as you're picking the companies right, a majority of them are probably going to be successful. As long as you're buying companies. Just don't buy penny stocks. Don't buy mid caps. Don't get pressured by the community around these things to buy. Again, that's for suckers. No offense. I've seen a lot of, and the reason I'm saying this is because I've seen a lot of people get caught up in this. I've seen a lot of penny stock holders just lose their life savings because they don't want to betray the community. GameStop, AMC, you know, SOS. There's a lot of stocks I could start naming. SNDL, you know, there's a lot of these stocks I could just start naming. MMAT, you know. And I'm not against you guys, but I could care less about some stock community, you know, and you shouldn't either. Make money. Who cares what other people think? My buddy sat in a penny stock until it was delisted. Bro, a lot of people do. A lot of people do. Penny stocks are the ones that are going to have the most nonsense out there. Like the most, I would call it propaganda. the most propaganda around the stock. This stock's going to be the next greatest stock in the world. You know, it's going to go up 50x next year. You know, all this nonsense about it. It really mirrors what Jordan Belfort said in The Wolf of Wall Street. You know, it's got such huge civilian and military uses. You know, next generation of radar detectors. You know, that again, if you hear something coming like that, just be careful. All right, look at this level here, 511 rejecting. It is the 200 exponential. We got some levels underneath this, but we're still in a pretty sideways range here. And again, this is the FOMC week, so I think a sideways range is even more probable. Dogecoin, yeah. I talked my mom out of buying Dogecoin at 75 cents. She wanted to buy it, sent me a message saying, "Hey John, I hear a lot about Dogecoin. Should I buy it?" I said, "No, don't buy it. It's nonsense right now. It's not going to hold." And she didn't buy it, luckily, and then it ended up going down to like, what, 11 cents? So... yeah, I mean, eventually you could take profit, Rusty. I mean, I'm not... like I said, in theory, you're supposed to never sell. But you could liquidate some of it and buy whatever you want with it. Alright, so we're coming right back down here. This is mostly driven by Nvidia, Tesla, Apple. All coming back down some. No, 100% Fender. That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, if somebody outside of the market is asking me about whether they should buy a specific stock, the answer is always no. You know, within reason. I mean, there's always outliers. Nothing's absolute. You know, like nothing's absolute, but. Alright guys, we got 25 minutes. Let's see what we get. Alright, now we're coming all the way back down to the bottom of the range. We almost have like an expanding range, which is good, but we're still pretty sideways here. You know, we'll see what happens. Not easy money to make though. Also, guys, if you haven't already, check out Top Step. Top Step, no PDT in futures. You can day trade the S&P, NASDAQ, Dow, Russell. If you want to learn to day trade, most day traders lose money. And so if you fund your own account tens of thousands of dollars, you're probably going to lose. Doesn't matter what course you take, who you follow, you're probably going to lose that account. It makes no sense to do it, especially if you're learning. Instead, try Top Step. They give you a 50K demo. It's $50 a month. If you can make 3K on that demo without losing 2K first, following their rules, reasonable rules and conditions, they fund you 50K, you get to keep your first 10K in profit afterwards, and then 90% split following that. So it's very similar to funding your own account with a $50 risk. It's the best of both worlds. And they pay out millions, hundreds of millions, I think at this point. They fund thousands. No PDT rule in futures, so it gets you around the PDT rule. You can day trade the S&P, NASDAQ, Dow, Russell. Very similar patterns to funding, to trading stocks, but no PDT restrictions. And again, I'll put this link up. It's a great way to help support the channel. They're an affiliate or sponsor of mine. I'm biased because they pay me money. So I'm biased, I get paid by them, but genuinely useful for day traders especially. I wish I had something like this when I first got started. But I'll put the link up. There it is right there. I'll also pin it to the top of the chat. Appreciate the love. Alright, so NASDAQ is now flushing down here. U.S. President on... All right, so the president speaking says it's difficult to deal. This kind of. Okay, so we got some news going on. Beijing is considering the 20% fentanyl tariffs quote-unquote unfair, but might still accept a 10% baseline. The president says smaller nuclear plants are interesting, mentions Rolls-Royce. The president on Russia says he's going to make new deadline for about 10 to 12 days from today. Does not see any progress being made. This might be what's turning markets down. Third round of trade talks between Beijing and Washington begins in Stockholm, according to AFP, citing sources. He said there's no reason to be waiting regarding a Russia deadline. We just don't see any progress being made. New deadline for Putin to be 10 or 12 days. But yeah, the trade talks have started in Stockholm. So, still coming down here a little bit. We're at 485s. Nvidia has had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 green or 12 red candles on a 1 minute chart. Tesla rebounding back up a little bit. We're still watching Nvidia though. PayPal drives crypto payments into the mainstream, reducing costs and expanding global commerce. Yeah. My question is, does another delay on tariffs cause the market to pump again until tariffs? Are we going to go sideways this time? I don't know, man. He said there wouldn't be any more extensions and that August 1st was going to be the deadline. But since then, we've had an extension on China. And we'll see if we get more extensions. We got most of the big deals done outside of China, though. We got Europe. We got UK. Most likely done. So there's other big countries, don't get me wrong, but those are some of the biggest ones that people were worried about. And so there's a reason we hit all-time highs today. It's mostly because of that. All right, we just cracked lows. We're continuing down some right now. Look at this drop. Tesla turned back down to the downside. I might buy this dip. We'll see. I'll try to buy it. We can play a little bit more with this. See if we get a retracement back up there. We'll crack lows once. Don't try to catch a falling knife with me, chat. These are very small trades. Even with this breakdown, the range is still pretty flat. There we go. Nice. Alright, so we retrace back up. I got a little bit too large of size here. I didn't want this big of size, to be honest. I accidentally bought 9. I wanted to reduce half. So kind of a mismanagement on my part, but I gotta get out some of this now. Yeah. I wanted to cut half of it, but I just kind of mismanaged it. Let me see if we can switch. I'll have to just wait until the opening bell. Still think we're going to get choppiness, though, and retrace back up, but you never know. Yeah, I'll switch to this one. I'll show you guys this one that we're in here. Oh, this one's a little bit different. We're just kind of taking a swing in a combine account since we're not really having success in our funded account. So we'll just wait. There we go. I mean, the big thing that might move markets is if the U.S. and China come out with negative stuff. All right, so we're going to start reducing some of the size that we have here. If I could add a little bit more at the bottom, Chinese AI company releases open source LLM named GLM 4.5. So we got that going on. No, this is a combine account. So, I mean, we're not going to take 30 contracts in a regular account. Yeah, I probably should have held the short. It's all right. I'm trying to trade small, though, today. I really am. Like, this is a combine account, so I can take more risk here safely. And it doesn't matter too much. My biggest risk here is 50 bucks. But, I'm not going to do this on my actual funded account. It's just not worth the risk. There we go. Alright, so we've liquidated a large majority of this position. Still got 15, though. And now I can hold the rest break even or so right around the lows, which I think is reasonable. I think my original long would have worked too. Look at Nvidia start to push. All right, the president says they'll be announcing pharma tariffs in the very near future, says the deadline. Says we'll be dealing with the UK on pharma. That just came out. So again, the US president says they'll be announcing pharma tariffs in the very near future, says we'll be dealing with UK on pharma. End quote. Alright, so we liquidated more now. We were holding a base position, small. 15 minutes into the opening bell. We just took another 40-something% off, or 50-something% off. I'll cut this here too. There we go. CrowdStrike, Symbiotic. Yeah, I think some of those are interesting. All right, so the European US dollar 600 billion investment in the US is to come from the private sector, according to Bloomberg. Yeah, I already covered that. That is most likely going to come from the private sector. Pretty standard, I think. All right, we did a poll number this morning. We asked, are you bullish or bearish on FOMC week? 67% said bullish, 33% said bearish. So we'll see. If TA matters, SPY hit its multi-year resistance line with overnight PA. Could be a bad sign heading into this action-packed week. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've broken all-time highs over and over and over again. And we're heading into the FOMC decision on Wednesday. And so we'll see if the market holds. Sometimes it's pretty probable that we're going to pause rates on Wednesday. And so whenever something's this likely, it usually pivots to the tone of Jerome Powell and the Fed. If Powell comes out really hawkish, meaning restrictive, meaning pushing for higher rates, less rate cuts, more restrictive monetary policy by the Federal Reserve, I think the market's going to react negatively to that. There's been a lot of people saying we don't get any cuts this year, and again, I think we'll at least get one, but I don't know when it's going to be. And I think if we do get worse data coming out this week in terms of PCE inflation, in terms of payrolls, in terms of jolts, in terms of, unemployment, if we get bad data, meaning like really strong economy is going to show less need of a rate cut, less need to cut rates. Higher jolts number is going to show the same thing. Higher payrolls show the same thing. Higher GDP for quarter two will show the same thing. Look at this level. We just tapped it. And so if we get, that's something we just got to be really weary of. These rate expectations are subject to change. And we just have to be really careful not to bet on one specific thing, because anything could happen here. We got 10 minutes left until the market opens. There's a wild card. Why do you think he goes there, Tony? I mean, I don't think anything like that's going to happen, brother. I think that's a really out there, really low probability thing. Yeah, I think that's just the president trying to pressure, but I don't think that's happening. Again, I don't think it's happening. All right, so we did tap this 45, 46 level we had on our charts. Look at Tesla come back down. So Tesla just broke the lows of the last little bit at least. Nvidia did turn to the downside as well. Tech kind of turned red, more red, I should say. We're getting close to these lows though. All right, guys, we got about 9 minutes left. All right, so we're testing these lows of the day again. Tesla, Nvidia coming down. Okay, so people like again, Fed is self-funded. It's not relying on tax dollars, congressional appropriations. It earns money from interest and treasuries, fees from services and foreign exchange operation. That income covers all the Fed's own expenses, salary, operations, building costs is what we're looking into. The reason the president is investigating this is because he's trying to find justification to for Powell to resign and to push Powell to resign. So basically, Powell works for the Fed. If Powell is not spending appropriately, it's more grounds to let him go, right? That is what's going on. But it's not that the U.S. is necessarily funding this. Yeah, I mean, it affects taxpayers, but not in any like major. It's tricky. No taxes are going to the Fed. The Fed's spending and losses are reducing how much it can return to the government, and that might be passed on to taxpayers. So it's nuanced, but yeah, it's not like we're funding this building necessarily. Yeah, I mean, you could say that, Tony, but yeah, I mean, maybe. All right, guys. Hey, we got 6 minutes. We're very flat right now. We're kind of testing lows, rebounding, testing lows, rebounding. All right, guys, 5 minutes. Markets are a little choppy today. We've been breaking up, breaking down a little bit. We've recently broken down some here. But markets are kind of stagnant. Not really moving much. We did break all-time highs this morning after the European-U.S. trade deal was announced. Renewing optimism. Bond yields originally went down, and all things were right. But then bond yields eventually spiked back up. If we take a look at bond yields now, they're up to 4.4%. So it's a little bit more, movement is. We're seeing a little bit more movement and stuff, but we're still pretty flat. We did test all-time highs today, and so there's a chance if we start to head up that we might, do something. Look at Tesla rebound back up as well, but again, very stagnant. A lot of the time, market participants are apprehensive leading into the Fed decision. So a lot of the time leading into these Fed decisions, market participants are kind of quiet. They don't really know what to do. They don't want to take big positions. So I do think we pause, like you were saying. Yeah, I mean, I think it's most probable we pause. There's always a chance. I mean, listen, there's a chance. There's a chance that we cut. It's not a very high chance, and I think the closer we get to the Fed decision, we'll see the percentages change. But there's a chance. Surprise decisions are not, impossible, and so there's a chance. Yeah, I think we're probably going to cut in September. Yeah, I think so. But again, that's subject to change. You got to play it meeting by meeting and look at the economic reports that come out and see how that influences the rate odds. Is what it is. So, all right, guys, we got about 3 minutes left until the market opens. We'll see what we get. Nvidia down to 174.30s. The president said he's going to confirm the new Russia deadline tonight or tomorrow. OPEC plus JMMC ends with no policy recommendations. The president also said we're going to do secondary sanctions on Russia unless we make a deal. We might make a deal. You don't know. Outside of that, nothing really major happening. We got about 2 minutes left until the market open, chat. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. We appreciate the love. What's up, Femi? Nvidia down, flushing down quickly here. Look at this. I'm gonna short, I think. All right, we got a minute left into the open. I got to cut some of this just because we got a minute left. I'm not going to hold this through. Let's add a little bit, see if we get it. I got to cut this within the next minute and 20 seconds. I just want to see if we retrace back down. There we go. Not going to hold this through the open, but we'll play with it. We'll see what we get. 1 minute left. We're up hundreds on this account too, so there we go. It's just not holding. Even with this range, it's still pretty small and flat. All right, guys, we got 30 seconds left. 35 seconds, really. All right, we're going to cut half of that there. 30 seconds. We'll hold the rest break even. See if we can catch a breakdown into the open, but... All right, we're going to cut that there. So we made a little bit, I think, but 20 seconds left. Look at Nvidia and Tesla turn. Alright. Alright, here's the bell. Sorry for how loud that is. Alright guys, so there's the opening bell. Nvidia has honestly rebounded all the way back up to where it was. Tesla's still cracking those lows. I'm going to put like Apple up here as well. Apple's right at that previous closing price. Things look a little weak though when you consider Apple and Tesla. But you never know, I'm going to wait. U.S. President reiterates the Fed has to cut rates, says U.S. is doing well even without rate cuts. But with rate cuts, U.S. will be doing even better. Well, yeah, that's always pretty true, to be honest. But the risk is inflation. But I don't disagree with them here. But the risk is inflation. The risk to cutting rates, economic stimulus, and more is inflation. All right, so Nasdaq popping up a little bit. Tesla rebounding, Nvidia rebounding, Apple falling. I'm not going to trade right now. I gotta wait at least 5 minutes after the bell to trade. Nvidia spiking up though, it's at 175. Alright, so Nvidia might be breaking all-time highs here. Nvidia just broke all-time highs, I think. 175.31 new all-time highs. Yeah, we just broke all-time highs for Nvidia. I guess I'll buy this. I don't really like it. I'll have to add to it if it doesn't work. It's a combine account where we're up 300 plus on the day too. So we could play with this, but it's definitely, I don't really take trades this close to the opening bell for a reason. Yikes, what a fake out. Luckily this is a combine account, guys, remember. So we lose here, it's 50 bucks. Now we're kind of retracing all the way back up. Now we're kind of flat on the day, but yikes. I gotta liquidate some of this. Maybe I'll add to it, but I think there's a lot of fake outs potentially here. Here we go. Alright, so Nvidia tapped all-time highs. Nvidia's creeping up to maybe break all-time highs again. It depends on what the rest do, but I should have gone with my original rule, which is that I don't ever attack the high of the day break. I attack the range up to the high of the day. We just ranged up there so quickly. And I'll switch to my funded account after I play around on this combine account, guys. So just give me a second. I'm breaking my rules at the opening bell, but at least it's just a challenge account. There we go. I'm going to liquidate some of that right there. Liquidate some more. Nvidia's getting close. I might add back on this retracement. There we go. Alright, well, we're back to green on the day. We're back to basically back to where we were. It's volatile, though. Sheesh. We'll hold the rest break even. Yeah, we're going to cut it right there. So, yeah, we're basically back to where we were, but man. It's kind of a big swing back and forth here. Nvidia broke all-time highs again. I don't like the first minute at all. It's too risky. Somehow we made our money back, but like it's just too risky there. Like, we have fun with it, but it's just too risky to trade. I like waiting 4 minutes at least. If I can wait 4 minutes, which is kind of where we're at now. Honestly, the opening bell's big range, but sideways too, though. Nvidia's breaking all-time highs, but it might be time to pull back. And I think Apple's weak, Tesla's weak since the open. And so I could see us coming back down here. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we just rip up. I have no idea. Inflation is not bad. Everybody gets richer. Look at Intel. Intel spike it up. Everybody does not get richer with inflation. Okay. I mean, look. Some people are self-employed. And so while everybody's salaries go up, that works for other people. If you're self-employed, you lose money from inflation. You know? We're kind of moving up, though, honestly. Hold on. I'll buy it here. Take some off right there. We might add back. Take some more off. We're right at that 200 exponential, though. We're right on the rest, but we made some money here. I'm gonna scale in. There we go. Start taking some off here. There we go. Take some more off. Cut it. Alright. Let's switch to our actual funded account now. What the heck? Let me refresh this. This is weird. What? Okay, there we go. I was about to say. Alright. It was weird. Yeah, we're kind of somewhere in the middle. Nvidia started to turn down. So is Apple. So is Tesla. Intel's up. United Health flat. Yeah, we're kind of sideways. We're not really. Tesla's starting to fall back down towards that previous closing price, the red to green level. All right, AMD at 173s. AMD's flying up this morning. President on Fed Chair Powell said he's leaving very soon. I'll miss him. End quote. Sarcasm? It's gotta be. Alright, AMD up. Nvidia finally breaking down after breaking all-time highs. Alright, AMD at 173s almost. Apple breaking down, it's at 213s. Yeah. Nasdaq starting to test this low here. It's so flat though. I might short this. Here, we'll try to short a little bit. But see if we get a follow through flush. That's what we want. There we go. Alright, we cut half. We cut the other half there. Scalping this move very quickly. We're kind of like in the middle range, but it looks like we're turning down. You never know though. If we can bounce right here and just continue the sideways. Yeah. President's out speaking. AMD at 172.50s. Nvidia at 174.70s. Again, we're very sideways, guys. This is not really an easy day to day trade. We're just kind of sitting around. We're trying to find stuff to trade, but it's a little boring right now, to be honest. I'm going to short this now too, if I can. We'll hold the rest close to break even if it kind of pops back up. There we go. We're out. Range is still very small. It looks like a lot of stuff's turning, though. Nvidia's turning. Apple's red on the day technically now. Tesla is right around the previous closing price. Yeah, I'm trading Top Step. This is Top Step X's platform. There's no PDT in futures. You can day trade the S&P, NASDAQ, Dow, Russell, gold, currencies. Most day traders lose money, so it's just a good way to limit your risk. Test yourself in the beginning. If you're good enough to pass it, you get a 50K funded account and 90% split. And prior to that split kicking in, you get to keep your first 10K. If you fail, you lose $50. It's the best of both worlds. There's also a $100 account, $150 challenge if you want to try that. No PDT in futures. Some of the most reliable payouts. Very quick as well. You can check them out here. They're a sponsor of mine. I'm biased. I get paid by them. Understand all this stuff. Market's so flat right now, guys. It's boring. There's not a lot going on. So understand all the stuff on screen. Can't guarantee anything. Bitcoin, on the other hand, popped up to 120, back down, but very, very choppy open today. We're about 15 minutes into the day. We don't really have any economic reports either. That all mostly starts tomorrow, along with big earnings for tech. Microsoft, Meta, Apple, Amazon. When's Amazon earnings? When's the next NVIDIA earnings? NVIDIA earnings are going to be August 27th, so we got a full month for NVIDIA. Amazon, July 31st, so Amazon earnings are Thursday, along with everything else. Yeah, we got Amazon, Apple, Amazon, MicroStrategy, Coinbase, Reddit, Riot, Net, Roku, Rocket, First Solar. More on Thursday evening. Intel's ripping since the opening bell too. So we got some actual like movement with some stuff, but a lot of the big blue chips are pretty flat. Starting to creep back up though. Look at Tesla fight his way back up. Tesla at 319s. NVIDIA up to 175, so NVIDIA's starting to creep back, maybe break all-time highs. Let's see if we make this run. Let's buy it. NVIDIA looks like it's going to test. We're at 3 micros, pretty small. I'm not going to be playing with too much here. 4 maybe, tops. Give us a chance to creep back up there. Alright, we're getting back up there. Tesla's making a move. Let's see if NVIDIA does. Now we gotta just cut it. I'm definitely getting some lag here on Top Step X. I might switch to play just regular. I might just switch to play regular combines based off of how much lag we're getting. NVIDIA's now dropping pretty significantly too. Looks like it wants to creep up there and break all-time highs, so let's see if it does. Intel coming down. Tesla hit the 200 exponential. Let's see if Nvidia bounces here, but it's kind of no man's land for me, guys. What was that? What happened there? That was weird. What a weird retracement here, guys. It's almost like getting bought up here. Strange. All right, Nvidia's getting up there. Let's see if it breaks all-time highs. Tesla's creeping up there as well. Apple's still holding it down, but very volatile. But big range, but hard to make money, but still. Yeah, there goes Nvidia. Crazy. Nvidia's right there at all-time highs. See if it holds. Nvidia's there. Looks like it wants to break too. It's such a sideways range. Remember, guys, we got the FOMC meeting this week. So that's kind of the big thing going on that you just want to be really weary of. Leading into that, we might have chop, but Tesla is starting to creep up too. I think Nvidia wants to break that all-time high, is what I think. All right, we're hopping up there. We had a big candle here move. Look at Tesla run. Sheesh. See if we bounce the 200 EMA. The range has still been pretty small, but look at Nvidia go. Nvidia's about to test that 200 exponential. All right, so the president's been speaking here. This might be causing some of this volatility. President reiterates the Fed has to cut rates, that U.S. is doing well without rate cuts, but would be doing better with rate cuts. Says there's not interested in talking to President Putin anymore. Touts Russia rare earths as potential trade product. He also says the U.S. is going to be setting a tariff for the rest of the world, and that's what they have to pay. Would love to see China open up their country, and that's basically it. We're still kind of stagnant here, though, guys. We're not really doing much. It's a little boring, so I'm probably just going to cut it and wait for tomorrow's economic reports. And so if you haven't already subscribed, hit the notification bell. I appreciate the love. Again, check out Top Step if you want to help support the channel. No PDT and futures. You can day trade the S&P, NASDAQ, Dow, Russell, gold. We're about 25 to 30 minutes into the day, and honestly, we're just not doing anything. Nvidia's trying to break all-time highs, but it keeps coming back down. Tesla's pushing up a little bit. Apple's flat. Liquidity's low today for some reason. Probably because all the stuff going on this week. Yeah, I would assume the NASDAQ is up more, but it's kind of slow to react to. So again, I'm going to get out of here. Y'all be good. Have a great day. Y'all be safe. I'll see you guys tomorrow. We got more stuff going on tomorrow for sure. So later, chat. Have a good day.